In this video, I really want to talk about a simple tip when it comes to setting the hook on a fish. And this is something that a lot of us anglers know about, but at times we are just not intentional about doing it. And when you're not intentional about it, it can cost you greatly. I know for me, there's been a few times where this has cost me. About 4 or 5 years ago, it cost me the biggest bass of my life and literally thousands of dollars. And I'm going to talk about that in this video. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. Right now for the month of July 2024, all of my USA made sun shirts, which one of the only USA made sun shirts out there on the market, are 20% off, straight 20% off. So, and I also know if you buy 2 or more, you also get free shipping. So anyways, I'm going to leave a link down below in the description for the sun shirts. Shopping at Finn Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel. All right, let's get into this tip when it comes to setting the hook on the fish. This is going to be short and sweet because I want to get to the point, but this really is for any time you are fishing, whether it's a spinning rod or a bait caster, a lure that you are working with the rod. So lures like jigs, Texas rigs, here's a little cover scat, here's a little Cinco, anything that you are more or less working with the rod and then kind of reeling down the slack and working with the rod. This is when you want to pay attention and be intentional about this hook set tip that I'm about to tell you. Now, the reason that I want to talk to you about this is because a number of years ago, back in 2019, I was fishing on Lake Chickamauga down in Tennessee, and I ended up getting 4th place in this Bassmaster Open tournament that I was fishing. But on the very last day, I had found this like magical grass patch where I was catching a lot of fish on a big worm. And I had been doing a really good job at my hook to land ratio. But on the last day of this tournament, a fish picked up my big worm, and I go to reel down and set the hook, and literally when I went to set the hook, it was like I just hit nothing. I thought my line had actually been cut. I went to set and it was nothing. And I realized what had happened is that the fish picked this bait up and he had started to swim at me, but the line was actually caught on a piece of grass. And so although I felt a little bit of pressure, my line was not tight. It was not tight. And when I went to set the hook, I actually didn't hit anything. And so what did I do? I reeled as quickly as I can to kind of get that slack out. I set the hook again, and up comes this fish. It was 30 feet away from the boat. Up rolls this fish, and I'm telling you what, I do not know how big this fish was. I mean, Chickamauga has 14-pound fish that has swam in it in the past. And this fish, I'm telling you, it was this freaking wide bass, and it was this like long. Like it was, my PB is an 8.4 from here in Ohio. This thing was well bigger, like way bigger than that. And this thing, I just seen it. I never really got a good hook in it, and it just kind of boiled just below the surface and pulled off. And in that particular tournament, like I weighed in a 2.5 pounder that day. Like it would have given me a lot of weight. It probably would have pushed me up into the 2nd place range in that particular tournament. I think about that one fish all the time, but the biggest reason that I missed that fish is because I did not make sure that 100% of the slack was out of my line. And I think that this is something that, like I said, at times, a lot of us anglers know, but we're just not intentional about it. And I have found that it happens a lot when you are fishing finesse techniques like a drop shot, where you will actually be working that bait across the bottom, or even like little jig head, like tube jigs, things like that. You'll be working that bait across the bottom, a fish picks it up, and he's swimming at you pretty good. And the best thing you can do is, what I found is what I like to do now, both bait casters and spinning rods, is I'm gonna reel until I feel a good amount of weight on that fish, and then I'm gonna basically set the hook into that fish. So it's almost like a reel hook set. You're feeling the weight, and then you pull back swiftly. That seems to get that fish pegged every single time if I do that. This is even more important when you are making a very long cast. You know, for me, I'll fish like a big worm. I'll fish like a football jig, and I'll make these massive casts out there. And have you ever had a fish, as soon as that bait hits the bottom, you pick up and he's moving with the bait? The big thing with that is you really want to reel to feel the weight of that fish like heavily on your bait before you set the hook, because you just want to get the slack out of your, like your line is going to stretch. So you want to have a lot of slack out of your line to drive that hook into that fish. And I've seen it with both spinning rods, with bait casters. Again, this is something a lot of us know, but there are just going to be a few times throughout the day where you may not be intentional about it, and you don't want to have it cost you literally the biggest bass of your life, like it did me. So guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. It's just a quick one. I really wanted to tell you about that, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy my fin fishing gear if you've purchased some. Also, this is my most recent video, and I will see you guys tomorrow.